Do you ride your dirt bike alone because you don't have anyone to ride with, but you're afraid of breaking down and getting stranded with no one to help you? I totally get it, especially if you're 20 miles away from your truck or civilization and you don't have a satellite phone. Well, did you know that many breakdowns can be prevented, but simply a lack of preparation is all it can take to leave you stranded out in the middle of nowhere? So the big mistake is not properly preparing your dirt bike. And the reason why a lot of people don't do that is because they don't know what to check or prep, or they don't want to spend hours just getting their bike ready to go trail ride for a few hours. But if you have a pre-ride inspection routine, this would only take a few minutes, and that could prevent a major failure that could leave you stranded, or something that could take hours to repair out on the trail. So would you rather spend a few minutes checking your bike now, or spend hours or days out in the middle of nowhere? It's like a commercial airliner. They always go through a routine checklist so that they don't have a problem while they're flying up in the air. And this keeps them reliable and greatly reduces the amount of breakdowns or failures. Now, I do have a pre-ride checklist PDF guide that you can download in the description below, but the main things that you want to look for before riding your bike are: 1, the oil. Does your bike have oil in it? Is it at the right level? Is it still clean? If the level is too low, this means that your bike is burning oil and you either need to add to it, or if it's dirty, if it's dark, if it's black, if it's sludgy, that means it needs to be replaced. So you need to change the oil, because if you let the oil go too long or let it get too low, this will cause excessive friction and heat on your engine, and it'll wear it out faster. And if you ride too long like that, it'll eventually get too hot and seize. And then you'll be stuck and you won't even be able to ride your bike out unless you have the parts and tools to do an engine rebuild on the trail. The next big thing is checking your air filter. This might not cause a major breakdown right away, but when you have a dirty air filter, this makes the bike harder to start, especially when it's hot. And if it's so clogged, this will make the bike run poorly. It'll have poor throttle response. It can foul the plug because it changes the jetting or the air fuel mixture. It'll be too rich. And the longer you ride like that, the more likely you are to have a problem. And if your plug falls and you don't have a spare part, a spark plug, or the tools to change it, well, you're probably going to be stuck. The next big thing is checking the chain tension. Now, it can be too loose or too tight and cause problems. If it's too loose, it's a lot more likely to jump off the sprockets, and when it does that while you're riding, it can jam up in the front countershaft sprocket, and it can actually crack the case, and this can cause an oil leak and potentially destroy the engine case, which is a full teardown rebuild required and super costly, super time consuming. So just checking your manual for the proper chain tension spec. And if it's too tight, this will wear out the front countershaft seal as it's pulling on the countershaft, and it'll eventually start leaking. Next, you just want to check with your hands the spokes, make sure that they're all tight. If you can wiggle them, that means they're too loose and need to be tightened. And if you let the spokes go too loose for too long, they can snap off, especially if you're doing jumps or riding aggressively. And once one spoke breaks, the wheel is weaker and you're more likely to break even more spokes. And if all the spokes break, well, good luck getting back. And if your bike has a radiator with coolant, just pop the cap off and check the coolant. Make sure it's topped off. And if it's low, this could be because the bike overheated last time you rode, or it could mean that there's a potential problem that's getting worse, causing the coolant to leak out or burn up in the engine. So just pay attention to that before every ride. And then just a really quick once around, looking at all the bolts, just making sure all the bolts are there. There's nothing loose. Just looking at your bike every time you ride takes less than a minute, and you might notice something that is loose, broken, or fallen off. And if you notice that before you ride, it might just save you from getting stranded or from causing a really nasty accident that could leave you injured. And if you don't want to get injured on the trail, having your bike prepped is super important. But if it is prepped and you don't know how to properly ride it using proper techniques and body position, you're a lot more likely to get in an accident. And if that's the case, then I want you to check out this video on why trail riders must learn positive riding habits if you want to prevent crashes. So check it out and let me know what you think. I'm Kelly Fager from Motocross Hideout. Learn more, ride more.